Alright, welcome back to the Crabby. Today we're going to do a very quick overview, rules breakdown, and my thoughts for the only expansion for Tekhenu called Time of Seth. And this is just the rulebook because I tossed the expansion box into the recycling bin. This is all the components you're going to get in the box, and it easily fits into the base game box. So you don't need to hold on to it, in my opinion. Just get rid of it. So what we're going to do in this video is give you a brief overview of what this expansion does, the setup, the rules, and you'll see my thoughts at the end. Alright, let's get started. All right, very quick overview before we dive into the components. This is not a modular expansion. All right, you pretty much have to play with everything or nothing if you're going to introduce this to the group. All right, so keep that in mind when I go over everything. You can't pick and choose. It's everything or nothing. All right, the sole exceptions are these little things, which I'll mention right away. These, as you know, is for the solo. So if you're playing with this expansion, you're playing solo, you need to introduce these tiles. All right, I'm not going to talk about these anymore. Toss these away. Alright, and the other thing is that there's this little dude over here to sort of fix the two-player game. Whatever, never play with this. It just adds extra points if they grab a die. It's pointless. It's just for two players. Don't play with this. There you go. Alright, so now we'll talk about the rest of the components and how it works. Alright, so as you can tell, the major aspect of this expansion is the Seth board. All right, so let's just go over the setup quick. So you can think of this as another action. So as you know, if you play the base game, all right, each slice of this pie, when you take a die, is going to be the action you're going to take. So pretend that the pie slice is one extra space in there, right, and it's basically over here. All right, so just pretend it's like this. All right, an extra piece of the pie. So you can take one of these dice to do the action on this board. All right, just as if you were doing the raw action before, you take a die from that section, you do the raw action. All right, works the exact same way. All right, so for the setup, you're going to put this board next to the main board. All right, so it adds a bit of real estate to your table. You're going to take 3 gray dice and add them to the board, roll them, add them in. Well, all twos. Let's just change one. Each player is going to put their soldier piece. All right, it looks like a little soldier with a shield on the 0 space of the soldier track, and their priest, which looks like a ghost, on the 0 space of the priest track. All right, you're gonna have these conquest tiles, which look exactly like the regular tiles from the base game, except there's a little blood icon there. You get a bunch of them. Shuffle them, put them face down, and then flip over the top one and put it on the space right over here. And that's pretty much it for this board. All right, for the main board, 2 changes. All right, first, you're gonna add the new Seth action over here for this action here, which is putting statues out. Well, now you can put statues out onto the Seth board, all right, which is over here. So this is a sort of an overlay. You're gonna put it right over here. All right, so you're gonna see this little gray section over here. It's gonna overlay right over here. So you can use any die from this section to add a statue to the Seth board. I'll go over this in the rules in a little bit. And the last thing you're gonna do is the sort of monolith tile. I forget what it's called. You're going to replace it with this one because we are introducing red, blue, and green dice now to the bag. All right, so this is going to tell you how to set those up. Pretty much green is always going to be pure, and the other 2 colors are always going to be tainted. All right, so red and blue. All right, and there you go. You're going to play the exact same way with this when you place out the tiles, the dice, match the colors to their sections up there. All right, some other changes to the setup here. You do have blood tokens. Just keep those next to the resources on the side of the board. When I go over the rules, I'll show you when you gain these. You're going to get extra dice, just like the base game. Throw them in, and depending on the player count, some of them have to get removed back into the game box. You get new decree technology and blessing cards. Just shuffle those into the base game cards. All right, and the other decks, all right, deal with the sort of setup and the Ankh cards from the base game. All right, we'll talk about these first. All right, so the first thing that changes in this game is the way we start the initial draft, so the setup. All right, so originally with the base game, you just have one starting card deck, and you just do like Teotihuacan and Zolkin, where you each draft 2 cards and you gain that stuff, right? Now, this deck completely replaces the base game deck from the base game. All right, so remove that deck, throw it back into the game box, and you're going to use this deck now. All right, because every single card in this deck is going to now give you soldiers and priests, which are the resources at the bottom. All right, so when you set up, what you're going to do is you're going to still use the same amount of starting cards, so 2 times the number of players plus 1. So let's say it's a 3-player game, so we're going to do 7. All right, flip those over, show them to the players. But you also have this deck here of, I forget what this is called. Cultist cards. All right, forgot the name. All right, so for this one, you're going to do number of players plus 1. All right, and you're also going to put that in the middle of the table. All right, the rest of the cards, you can throw them back into the game box. All right, so during the initial draft, what you're going to do is you're going to do just like before, it's a snake draft, but now you can take either a starting card or a cultist card. All right, so now instead of drafting 2 cards, you're going to draft 3. So you're going to snake one way, snake the other way, and then snake back from the first player onwards, where everyone's going to have 3 cards, 2 starting cards, and 1 cultist card. Before I forget, let me explain what these cultist cards do. All right, so whichever one you drafted, all right, it's going to sit beside your player board. All right, and it's sort of an ongoing ability that only you have. All right, so how do you read this card? There's the sort of stipulation on the top of what you need to do, what you're going to gain, and what all the other players are going to get. All right, so random example here. So build a pillar adjacent to the edge of the temple complex. If you do that, you'll get a resource. Awesome. But then every other player can do the bottom part. So give up a resource to get a scribe. All right, and it's just going to sit beside your board, and you can trigger it 1,000,000 times during the game. All right, as many times you like. So whenever you do this part, you'll gain this, and everyone else can do this. All right, that's all I'm going to say about these. All right, the only other change are these artifact cards. All right, let's talk about these quick. So you have a deck of artifact cards. So here you're going to flip over twice the number of players. All right, so if you're playing 3 players, you'll flip over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I already have 6. All right, and you're going to notice the little Ankh symbol on them over here. All right, so they're very similar to the original Ankh cards that you have from the base game. All right, so the way these work is you're going to separate them by the type of Ankh over here. So these are the 1s, these are the 2s, these are the 3s, and you're going to align them with, well, I only have the 1 and 2 from the base game, but you're going to align them with the base game cards out onto the side of the table. All right, in the future, when you draft these cards, all right, you're able to also draft one of these if you pay for the priest value on the left. You can see a little priest value here. So let's just say we're in turn 5 or 6, and it's my turn to draft an Ankh card, and I had 5 priests. There's the track on the right. I can pay 5 priests to grab this card with this card. All right. Now, instead of getting the resource here, all right, this you're just going to keep it for the new Ankh value when you do the tiebreaker in the mat phase. All right, but because I paid this, now during any of my turns going forward, I can do this ability instead of getting 1 gold. And these abilities are pretty powerful, obviously, because you're paying a lot of priests. So here it says increase all your productions by 1. All right, so you go up on all the tracks, and they all have something different. Read what it says. Go look in the rulebook. They're all explained over there. But that's how all of these artifact cards play. And obviously, when this gets used, it gets returned into the box. Or it's first come, first served to the 6 cards that are out there. So once they're all used, well, now you're just drafting these just for their abilities at the bottom. All right, so artifact cards. Get rid of these. All right, let's go over the big thing, which is the new board. Get rid of everything. All right, the new action space. So remember, you take a die from here, and you do the action on this board. Now this action is all about putting your buildings out onto this board to get a bunch of bonuses. And how I'm going to show you how this works is with a concrete example. Easiest way to show you. All right, so the number you take is the section where you're going to build a house. All right, so if you take a 4, you're going to build it in the 4 section. You're going to take a 2, you'll build it in the 2 section. Obviously, if it's a 6, it's a 6 section. Pretty simple. And there's only 2 available spots for every single number. So first come, first serve. Once they're both taken, well, people can't add buildings anymore. And obviously, when you go there, you'd want to take the one to the left because it'll give you more points during the point phase. All right? And each player can only be in every section 1 time. All right, so once purple puts his spot here, for example, he can't add another one over here. All right, let me show you with a concrete example. So let's say it's the first thing I do on my turn. I have all my buildings on my track, let's just say, and I take the 4 die. Now, FYI, when you take a die from this section, it's always going to be tainted, so it's going to sit there. All right, and then you're going to take your building. Remember, you can use your scribes to up and down the values by +1, -1, +2, -2. All right, but let's say I take a 4 and I don't want to change it. I'm going to add this to the 4 section. The first thing you need to do is pay. All right, it's not free to go there. All right, not like the temple, the Horus, not the Horus, but the Hathor action on the temple track. That one you need to pay food. This one you need to pay soldiers. All right, so the first person to go in an area needs to pay 4 soldiers. All right, that's with the big 4 over there. Nope. See the 4? All right, the next person to play in that section is going to be 3. All right, this is the 3-4 player game. On the other side, it's a different number. I think it's 5, if I remember correctly. And that's paying in soldiers. So let's say I'm the purple player, and I had 8 soldiers. Well, I got to pay 4 by putting this here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I go down by 4, and I paid to put it in there. All right. Next, you're going to see the little drop icon. All right. This means you're going to add this to your tainted side, and this never gets removed for the rest of the game. All right. Whenever you enter a mat phase, this is going to count as a +1 on the tainted side. All right. Very, very important. So the more buildings you build out here, the more taint you're going to get for adding these droplets all over the place. All right. The other benefit you're going to get is the section that you're in, top right, you're going to get something. All right, so by putting in the 4, I'm either going to get limestone or granite. If I went into number 3, for whatever reason, I get parchment or bread. Here's draw 2 cards, keep 1, get scribes, gold, so on and so on, population, happiness, whatever. All right, so you're going to get the benefit there. The other thing you're going to do is over here, might as well go through this in order. You're going to take the first tile, conquest tile here. You notice it's the one with the droplet. And you're going to add it to the temple board. All right, you're just going to put it in the corner somewhere. Oh, the board's up there. But you're going to look at the temple track. You're just going to replace one of the squares that are already there. You're not going to gain any rewards for doing so. You're just changing the sort of landscape and you're making it more juicy because these tiles are much better than what's pre-printed on the board. All right, you're just going to add it to the board and that's it. And then you'll flip over to the next one. All right. And the last thing is if there was a statue in that column, you'll make 3 points. That's it. Pretty simple. All right, so let's just, I don't have my statues here, but let's say there was a statue here. When I put this here, I'll gain 3 points around the point track. Okay, so what changes in the phases when you're playing the game with this expansion? First thing is obviously during the scoring phase. One thing's going to change. You're going to see the year. These are the point scoring icons in the game. All right, you're going to score basically this whole section during that phase. So in this example here, purple will gain 3 points. Let's say I add another building here, I'll gain 6 points in total from the set. That's it. Just score points. The second thing that changes is during the end of round when you're refilling after a rotation. How do you fill up this section? If anyone's taken a die and you're refilling the board and this section has less than the number of players, so a 3-player game, let's say there's 2. All right, let's say another player drafted this one. So we're still less than the number of players. All right, when you're refilling the dice, if you grabbed a gray die when you're filling up one of the sections, you're going to take it and you're going to add it to the section. All right. But at most 1 die per refresh. All right. So even if 2 were taken and you're refreshing the dice, even if you're taking out multiple gray dice, you're only ever adding +1 gray die to this section. Okay, so if there's none, well, you're still just adding 1 gray die, and then you're going to refill the regular board, and then you're going to go into the next round with only 1 die in this section. So other minor things, obviously, the Horus action up here, which is building the statues. Well, you have another place where you can build statues. So you can build statues here, just as per usual when you're building around the circle. All right, and when somebody does that action, you're going to gain a benefit. All right, but to build a statue here, you're going to notice that there's an extra cost. All right, you're going to have to give up 2 priests, as well as the cost of building the statue on your board, and then you can place it on the set board. All right, but you're going to put your statue here. And then whenever somebody does this action by taking a die, you're going to get a resource of your choice. Very simple. Okay. The other place that you can put a statue on this board is just like the people statue on the temple and on the bottom left-hand side of the main board here, is you can put a statue here and here. And when you put a statue here, you're able to take a Thoth action All right, and you draw cards equal to the, each sector that has a building. So if I were to put a statue right here, I would only draw one card because only one sector has a building. But let's say there was a building here and a building here, building in all three. When I would build a statue here, I would draw 3 cards from the top section right there. All right, that's it. And I believe the absolute last thing is just to explain to you the, might as well bring it up, temple side here. So once you put conquest boards, like I mentioned before, and they're on this board, I mean, remember what I said. When placing them, you don't gain any benefit, but when somebody puts their pillars on these, they're going to gain the benefits of the new conquest tile that's there. So instead of getting 2 bread, if this tile was here, well, I'll get a gold and a bread instead. And when building a building here, and you're checking across, you would gain, again, 1 limestone, 1 granite, 1 gold, and so on, depending on what it is. Some of these tiles have cards, so you gain 1 card. Some of them have multiple stuff, you gain 1 of that stuff. If you go across and it's an action, so you see this is this sort of action space, so if you put a pillar here, you get like a free action. Well, this you'll gain nothing on the building. Like if I would add a building here, and I would gain my stuff, I would get nothing for this one. Pretend that it's just like this one. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how it goes. Not much of a big rule set here. Let's go to my thoughts. Oh, I'm an idiot. I forgot to mention one last thing. These dice. All right, what are you used for? Remember, green's always pure. These ones are always tainted. And the green ones don't give you anything special. So treat them like the gray ones. So once you take them, you can't use them to get resources. And these two, you can't really get them to get resources, except that you automatically get the priest or warrior depending on the action. All right, so let's say you were going to take this on the raw action. So I would do a raw action of 4. But then, because it's a red die, I'll gain 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 soldiers. All right, if it was a blue die, let me do the Hathor in action of 5. Well, then after I do the action, I'll gain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 on the priest track. All right, so that's how you gain priests and warriors throughout the game. All right, well, I thought it's pretty cool. I mean, there's not much to say. It's not a brain burner. It doesn't add too much. Although it is not one of those more of the same expansions, you do get a whole new module, whole new set of rules to teach. It is already a pretty long teach. But for people who've played heavy Euros, you know, this is not much of an expansion. It doesn't add that much stuff. I do like it because it does ramp up the game a little bit, right? You do get my favorite part of this expansion, which are these sort of enchantment things where if you do something, you'll get something special. So, you know, you're getting multiple bonuses throughout the game, sort of ramping you up a little bit more. And something I've never seen before is you get something and everyone else can do something. So that's pretty cool. So everyone's, you know, gaining free stuff throughout the game. So that's pretty cool. I do like the new starting cards. They seem a bit more powerful, get you ramped up a little bit better. Again, you can get priests and soldiers as you go, which is cool. The new on cards are pretty awesome too. Another way to ramp up, use your priests, and these abilities are pretty strong. So you pay the 4 to 7 priests, and you get to do one massive thing on one of your future turns, which is pretty good. And you know, when you're looking at this board, it is just a point scoring system. During the point scoring section, you're just going to get some more points. All right. I do also like it. Very important before I forget, is sometimes during the game it is hard to get a specific resource. Well, you can come to this board and pick it up. So let's say there's no way to really get granite because it was missing maybe a white or a black die on the main board. There's no real way to generate it. Well, you can come here, at least get 2. You know, it's an option. All right, I've played a couple of times where it was hard to get a certain resource and I was locked out. Well, I could have came to this board, get my 2 parchment or bread or whatever, and it would give me points at the end of the game. I mean, it's a little thing, but it's pretty cool. And it adds a bit more restriction to the scales, all right? Because of these blood tokens, well, they're going to keep being added. So if you go down this path and you build a lot of buildings, well, then you're going to be very tainted. You're going to keep getting these blood tokens on this side. And if you're getting to like 5 or 6, well, you're going to keep going around on the math phase into the negative section. You might start losing points, and it's pretty cool. All right, well, that's it. I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, you can give it a shot if you can find it, then there you go. So, as per usual, let me know if I made any mistakes. We'll see you in the next one. Later.